the 2nd of June, 2025. Coming up on today's Global Intelligence Agency Operations Report. In 2021, Trump made a deal with the Galactic Federation, the Federation of Light, and the Federation of Dark. But could they fulfill their promises? Well, they thought that day would be today. Intelligence information has been leaked about a behind-the-scenes deal Vice President Vance made during his trip to the Vatican. And kingdoms, and more kingdoms, oh my. Plus global security contracts and registered lords of the land all disappear overnight as the transition is nearly complete. Plus, an interesting information comes to light during a UNN exclusive interview over the weekend. Well, it's the 2nd of June, and it's Monday. Busy weekend. I hope you all enjoyed Friday's live report, and I'll give you an update on the transition and where we're at with that. But we have a few little things, or big things, to discuss. So I'm going to start with Trump's deal. So back in 2020, everybody's been complaining about election fraud and the 2020 election and all those kinds of things. It's all over the alt media, and everybody was, waiting for him to get reelected, and the election was stolen from him. But was it really? So around that time, remember, if you've been around long enough to remember the old reports way back in 2020, then you'll remember what I said. I said that Trump had won the election. Now, that part's true. He actually did get enough votes to be voted in as president. And those votes were counted. So it's not like there was, not to say that every election or selection, as we like to call it, doesn't have a little bit of fraud, and selections often happen before you know who is going to be the next president or prime minister. Of course, it's always been this way. It's always been a selection by the elite or certain groups that get to pick who is going to be the next head of state and who owns that head of state, like a dog. And I would say this election was no different, but it had some zippy and exciting twists to it. I've often told you, and I know this to be a fact, that Trump, the original family name is von Kempf. And it hails from Eastern Europe originally, more specifically Ukraine, interestingly enough. You could also say that it also hails from Germany. And Trump made some interesting deals. Now, Trump has held a position, and his father, as well as his uncle, all held positions within the order. Trump's uncle was a physicist and scientist that participated in Project Paperclip. Trump's father also participated in the Nazi movement, amongst many other things, and was known to be affiliated at points in time with the KKK and other organizations that would say, if you're not white, you're not right. There is actually a lot of indications based on real estate developments in New York that would indicate that that is the case. Now, as far as Trump himself, he's always participated in the order. There are videos online, if you look deep enough, of him with Epstein and other order members. Definitely had a relationship with the Clintons and other people you've come to know and hate over the years. So in this particular case, Trump was offered a deal. Now, you see, what was supposed to happen, according to the deep state, is that over the 4 years that Biden was in office, the United States was supposed to fall. And the power center was supposed to be moved over to China, and then Trump was going to come back as the hero and save the world. Well, they sure gave it a go and hyped it up a lot in alt media and in the media, and promised patriots a lot of things and didn't deliver on any of it. If anything, it's been worse than it was the last time. So in this particular case, Trump has no support. during the last administration, as you all know, there was some collaboration between myself and Trump, and there was a lot of promises made to us too, that the money was going to be spent to help people during hurricanes and floods in California and fires, and none of that actually took place. So there was a lot more to that story, and I know you've heard it all before, so I'll just leave it at that. But as far as the 2020 election, Trump had been promised a much higher position in the order. The chair of destiny, as they call it, or the throne of Pindar, was actually moved to Mar-a-Lago, where it sat for quite a long time. From there, it came over here to Durango, and there were many people that tried to sit in the chair and, check out to see if their golden booty worked, but it did not. Several generals came and went, and other, let's just say, people that you see in alt media were present at the time as well. But Trump had made a deal with the order that he was going to have a much higher position than he would if he were president. And he couldn't be president at that time because it was supposed to be a time when the United States was going to fall, and then he would come back in a higher position to, I guess, rule the world. Who knows? And that higher position didn't quite work out. But more information on that higher position I will reveal to you today. So there were some conversations with 3 different groups, all of them working together as one unit. One of those groups was the Galactic Federation. You've heard this term in alt media quite a bit. Another group was the Federation of Light, or the Federation of False Light, artificial light, symphonic, sophon light, not symphonic, sophonic light. And the other one was the Federation of Darkness. Now, I want to tell you a little bit about these federations before I tell you about the deal. So the Galactic Federation, or some people, I should say on the internet that they are positive, that they are saving humanity. The Galactic Federation itself was comprised of both humans and non-humans, and Marduk was the commander of the Galactic Federation. There were other beings that were not in favor of the health and welfare of humanity or Earth, which were also members of the Galactic Federation. Beings like the Red Queen and Artemis and Lucifer and others participated in the Galactic Federation. The Galactic Federation would be what you would call a neutral group. They were supposed to act on behalf of balance, which never really happened. As you know, Marduk's version of balance and our version of balance are not the same thing. And they were supposed to be the defenders of both the dark and the light. The Federation of Light was also made up of both humans and non-humans originally. And Marduk also sat as the commander of the Federation of Light, and also the Federation of Dark. Each one of these groups were supposed to act on behalf or act as proxies for their respective groups, both human and non-human. Now, these 3 groups, over the course of this war that we have been in, became mostly human over the last several years. I had a run-in with the Galactic Federation, and I'm not going to call it a run-in per se, but there was a time when we made there was a major transition that happened in our favor, or favor of the light side of the multiverse. And based on that transition that took place, the enforcer had to leave for a period of time. And he told me that he informed the Galactic Federation that I was ground commander and that they were supposed to take orders from me and act as sky command or defense in his absence. Well, I called the Galactic Federation. They answered because they were supposed to, and I made a certain request, and that request was not adhered to in any way, shape, or form. So thank you so much for taking my call, but however, it didn't really work out the way it was supposed to. Shortly thereafter, the enforcer returned, and I explained what had happened, and he hasn't left since. So that was my run-in personally with the Galactic Federation. Now, the Galactic Federation, the Federation of Light, and the Federation of Dark work hand in hand. They are not separate. They are not against each other in any way, shape, or form. They, and the humans that are left or were left participating in these federations, were working hand in hand with the secret space program folks. Now, why? Because they are the secret space program folks. You've heard of other people talk about their time and memories. Some of them have been memory wiped, so the memories are a little foggy. But you've heard of several people on the internet talk about their time with the Federation and what it was like, you know, for those that actually remembered or where the memory wipe did not work. They left the planet for 18 years at a time, that kind of thing, and all that's really real. There were bases throughout this galaxy. I would say most every planet had a base, and most of those bases were run by non-humans. However, some of the humans did participate within those bases. As far as a base of operation in the Omniverse, you would find them on Proxima Centauri, Alpha Centauri, and Beta Centauri. You would also find other locations which they frequented in Andromeda and in the Cancer constellation. So, you know, they were heavily involved in activities here for quite a long time. Now, they have been participating, as came to light over the weekend, what was left of them. They had been participating in trying to prevent the transition from happening. They had also been working together with the humans here on this planet we know as the deep state. Two bases where they would go, the deep state that is, to communicate with these federations would be in Vanuatu, which is a small island in the Asian Pacific or the South Pacific, and in New York. Communications were sporadic and random. Oftentimes, they would communicate about various things. So, were they in communication with the Trump operatives, which are also SSP? The answer to the question is yes, they definitely were. They were working together in order to prevent a transition and the positive transition for humanity. Unless, of course, well, the deep state could be in charge and be ground command. Now, the Galactic Federation and the Federation of Light and the Federation of Dark, after the death of Marduk, really were a little bit lost as to who was ground command. They were told by the enforcer that it was me, but they didn't want to believe that, so they appointed Trump as ground command, with no backing from any non-humans, even at that time. Obviously, Trump hasn't been with us for a while now, but that is why the dumb deep state people still believe the stuff that Trump operatives have to say. Now, over the weekend, they believed that this Galactic Federation and Federation of Light and Federation of Dark was going to help them in some way, shape, or form. They believed that they were going to gain control of various AIs that were put in place for both human and non-human use on this planet by this weekend. And there's a definitive reason as to why. So if you've been around for a while, you remember me talking about a group of people as far back as 2019, maybe even earlier, called the New Earth Council. At one point in time, the World Council was made up of non-organic humans, as well as non-humans on this planet, and together they ruled Earth. Some of those would be, Marduk and others and that kind of thing. But then there was a little bit of a liberation that ended up happening in 2019, 2020, beginning of 2020, whereby about April of 2020, we had some groups that were of the light, of source, that came to visit, and they helped us wipe out some of the underground bases that were connected to the dark. And by underground bases, you have to understand that deep underground military bases went down so far, let's just say the human sections went down so far. They went down to about level 6. And on level 6, there would be a coordination between non-humans and humans. Oftentimes, there were folks that would work in those bases that were against us. But there were also about 36 different races, other species, I should say, on this planet, which were enslaved here. They were brought here for their various talents, some of them being biological talents, some of them being natural talents in their ability to manipulate nature, such as in a positive way, such as like, Sasquatch, what you know as a Sasquatch. There are also the Saurians, who are very adept at working with nature and manifesting and that type of thing. The Saurians were one of the original races here long before humans ever showed up. And all of these 36 races had been enslaved for a long period of time. They still had some communication with others elsewhere, but due to covenants and agreements when Marduk was around, they were unable to break free, and no others were willing to go against the Draco as a force to be reckoned with in the Omniverse at the time. So at this point, unbeknownst to myself, about 2 years ago or so, I kind of lost communication with this New Earth Council. So once they were freed, based on what happened in April of 2020, they were helping us quite a bit. We were in communication quite a lot. There was a place down the street here in Silverton, which is 50 miles or so from here, where I had met these folks, and we communicated a lot. And they told me about what happened here. They began communicating with each other because they were segregated into different camps. This is almost like the Holocaust, but for non-humans. And they were segregated in different working camps around the world and not allowed to speak to each other because they were each told a lie. So at that point, apparently the Galactic Federation, the Federation of Light, and the Federation of Dark, which at the time Marduk had already gone, and these folks were working together with what remained of the dark forces in the Omniverse. We've come a long way since then. And they decided to utilize these 36 races, or species. I keep saying races, but they're species. 36 species that resided on this planet in a negative way, just like their predecessors did. So they apparently put these people into, for lack of a better term, a space junk jail, and began to use them to power AIs that worked to their advantage. They shared some of these access points with what we know as the deep state, or what's left of them. And they began a working relationship and utilizing these people and their powers while they were in stasis in order to do really bad things on this planet that we've been fighting ever since. But a lot came to light during this transition because that's what the transition is designed to do, is shine light on the planet and bring us back to living in the now, which is really, really important. So what came to light is, number one, their minimal, at best, communications with non-humans on this planet. Humans on this planet, I should say, the deep state. The fact that they were sending a lot of these negative frequencies we couldn't find to this planet in order to prevent humans from awakening. Utilizing AI systems that were put there before that they had some limited access to manipulate humanity, to cause us pain and harm. Things such as, you heard about the COVID outbreak in China. You've heard that we were going to go into another lockdown and the first cases were in the U.S., monkeypox and all the other things that we've heard about in the last couple of years. You can thank your Galactic Federation and the Federation of Light. Woohoo for that. The humans on the ground could communicate with them to some limited degree and give them orders and instructions as to what they would like to see happen. That is about it. Now, as with any binding, so to speak, last night there was an opportunity, which must be granted, by the way. Same thing as it has always been with humans. Even though we were bound and locked up and genetically modified and all those types of things, there still has to be an opportunity for humans to break free, just as it was with these 36 races. Now, our opportunities came about every 1,008 years or so, and well, because we were so beaten and torn and manipulated, we never quite made it over the hump. This time, that is going to be different. We had no hope of fighting against people like Marduk and other non-humans with far superior technology to us. Plus, we also had a good portion of our elite humans or ruling humans or slave leaders, so to speak, that were also against us. So the cards were stacked against us every single time. Plus, there were lots of covenants and whatnot that were in place that were hard to work against. So we never really made it, until now. We also didn't have a very pleasant ground commander at that time, known as Marduk, who was also not willing to help humans or just to give us a little bit of information to see what we would do with it. Most of the time, nothing happened. And round we go. So as it relates to the 36 species that were enslaved here, that became enslaved again about 2 years ago by this federation and put in stasis and used as power packs for their various skills, their time came on June 3rd. Now, if you're watching this report, you're going to say, well, it's only the 2nd here in the States, but it's not. It's the 3rd in Australia. It's the 3rd in China by the time this report is released. So as of the 3rd, they had 24 hours to try to break free. And today was the day that they began their freedom again. We have been communicating ever since that moment in time, and they were helped by us, by the enforcer and others to allow them to be free. Not only that, the AI systems that were in place, holding them in place so that they could manipulate things, were also removed from this planet. So therefore, they are no longer power packs to serve an evil agenda. Federation of Light, my booty. There was no light coming from any of these folks. So, of course, the deep state was all excited when they thought the aliens are here, because they were woken up from stasis automatically. It just happened. They couldn't hold the binding longer than a couple of years. And so they began immediately trying to break free from the jail, the space junk jail, in which they were held around this planet for a couple of years. So, we took a look at what was happening there, and we had to kind of delicately remove these things piece by piece and bit by bit with their help and, our help and the council's help and other folks. And it was done today. So as far as the federations, they no longer have bases in those locations. The base in Vanuatu and in New York was destroyed, and anything that we do find that is left of any of these AI systems will also be destroyed in the next 24 hours. So that leaves whatever's left of the deep state. Well, they're going to be a little bit upset with what's happening next. So bottom line, was Trump actually ground commander? No, that was a lie. There was no one with the capacity to give them access to the things, such as things that I have, that he would have had access to this whole time. But they lied. They lied to every country. They lied to intelligence agencies. They lied to you. They told everyone, now it makes perfect sense to me, why when it came time for another selection, Trump became president again, because he wasn't sure, and they were not sure, that if it was his position as president and ground commander that gave him access to all the money, or his position as president, or just his position as ground commander, because that didn't work out well coming from Mar-a-Lago. But, they gave it one heck of a go. So whatever that is, orange people walking around in the White House, well, it wasn't because he was president. That part has become clear. And so they gave it a run to when the others that powered the machines tried to break free today. They gave it a run to try to convince them that this was a good idea and they should stay there. Yeah, well, that would be a no from us. And that was a no from them. They're happy to be back in their natural place of being here on this planet, and happy to be away from any federations and their respective bases, and happy that they're not there anymore. So they will continue on with their quest to help us heal and build a new Earth. So it was good to be reunited with them. I wondered where they went, wondered why I had a really hard time reaching them. I mean, I did try to reach them several times, and the communication was minimal and very muddy, meaning it was hard. It was like pushing through quicksand to try to have a conversation with this person that had very clear, concise communications with me for years prior to this. So it was just interesting, and all in all, it worked out well for us, worked out well for them, and didn't work out so well for the Trump people yet again. So that plan failed. Are they going to try something else? We've got a very small, slim window of us lingering, so to speak, in limbo between artificial creation and the now of source. So did they all together, when they were all here and functioning, did they all together manage to delay us? Yes. There was a delay yesterday, which we couldn't quite figure out where it was coming from, and we didn't see it until late last night. So, it looked like almost like if you were to put a vacuum cleaner on two ends of a tube and put a ball in the middle, aka Earth, and there was suction coming from both sides, maybe a greater amount on the right than on the left, but still, the ball was moving bits and bits and bits at a time, and it wasn't moving real fast. We are now moving at normal speed. The resistance, you could say artificial gravitational pull trying to pull us back, is no longer there, and we're moving right along. So we're hoping it won't be more than another day or two, and albeit a short delay, hopefully most of that has been cleaned up, and we'll continue monitoring the situation throughout the night tonight and in the morning. So that's kind of why Trump became real popular amongst the deep state. And, well, if it hasn't become clear to all you nations that were promised many, many things by the Trump group and have delivered absolutely zero, well, now you know why, and that's the story behind the story. He never will deliver either. So sorry, you guys are all waiting for something supposedly by the end of last month, and it's all happening now, and yesterday was going to be a great day, and the day before, and not a zippo zilcho. So back to the drawing board for the deep state. They are in heavy meetings this evening and were earlier today trying to figure out what their next plan of action is, because, you know, you never give up, do you? You could always go with the restoration plan, but I don't see that ever happening. I think you will die trying, and we're okay with the die trying part. Next. Oh, interesting information leaked out about Mr. Vance in the last few days as well, because we were trying to figure out why there was so much chatter about Trump allegedly not being here. This is coming from the Q crew. You know, he hasn't been here since, you know, he took position, you know, with the Federation, and, you know, all this stuff is kind of leaking out now, at least in the alt media and the Q section. And I was trying to figure out, what's going on here? Then we got some back chatter from government sources that said that they were going to announce that he had passed away and they were going to put Vance in office. Well, Vance did not want the position. He wanted the higher position he was offered at the Vatican. So Vance apparently also participated in the ritual and met a lot of deep state black nobility folks on his trip to Italy as well. And he too was promised position of ground commander. And that position was going to take effect today. Woo! No later than tomorrow, they said. And they're still telling him the same song and dance. And, you know, will any of this actually happen? No, there is no Vance is ground commander, Trump is ground commander, and the Galactic Federation, Federation of Light, and Federation of Dark, if there's one of those humans still around somewhere, someplace, well, they have no authority to do anything and never actually did, which is why the access never came. Not for Trump, and won't happen for Vance either. So are they going to dance the dance? Who knows? They'll probably just make it, I don't know, keep it status quo. You know, there was a lot of reports also in the alt media about crazy stories coming out in the Truth Social / Trump sector there. And now you know why. That's the backstory. There also is a lot of chatter about announcing Biden's death and that Biden's actually been dead since we said he was dead. At least they're admitting that fact. And whatever that was walking around, mask or otherwise, was definitely not Biden. Still isn't. And there's been an announcement that allegedly he has fast-moving prostate cancer. So they're running out of time, and they will probably use a state funeral as another distraction for yet another failure. Almost was a double funeral there for a little while. I don't know. You know, who knows what Duck Dynasty is going to do. The Cowboys will do what the Cowboys will do, and then think about it later after they already act, as they always do. Okay, more information that has come to light. So we know about a few kingdoms, you know, the plant kingdom, the animal kingdom, you know, and then there's a few different types of bacteria and fungus and whatnot kingdoms here on this planet that they teach you about in school. But what we didn't know was that there is a kingdom for basically everything. So as we took over any remnants, and we've been working very feverishly because this is a good time for us to clear the air, because things become visible that were not visible before. The destruction of a lot of those AI systems used by the federations allowed us to see a lot more. It's like pulling up the rug and seeing all the dust underneath there. So we finally started seeing all the dust. So kingdoms. Kingdoms went hand in hand, let's just say, with unknown country. And the kingdoms could be for just about anything. There was a kingdom of air, a kingdom of water, a kingdom of the ocean floor, a kingdom of the sky, the weather kingdom. There was a kingdom for each country, and several sectors of this planet were kingdoms underneath the order, just as we had talked about under the Rothschild plan. There were also kingdoms of Earth. There were kingdoms of the omniverse, kingdoms of the universe, and kingdoms and kingdoms and kingdoms, dark, light, and neutral. There were all kinds of control kingdoms, kingdoms that contained you as citizens, kingdoms that contained you as citizens of not only your country, but also Earth. Kingdoms for and this, that, and everything you could imagine. Also plants and animals, and with their corresponding liens and, let's just say, space junk authority over your mind, body, soul, person, growth rate of plants, dust on this planet, and the land. So these various kingdoms were used by non-humans. Now, there was never any access to the kingdom section of AIs that ran this planet by humans, Space Force or otherwise. They were promised they would get a hold of and be able to run these kingdoms one day, hence the Rothschilds' plans of having, 10 sectors of this planet all run by 9 different central banks you would know, one you wouldn't see. There were areas of this planet that also were kingdoms, the kingdom of central banking, the kingdom of the Bank for International Settlements, the kingdom of JP Morgan Chase, the kingdom of HSBC Hong Kong, the kingdom of Barclays Bank, and all kinds of crazy stuff. It's amazing what a non-human walking this planet for 16,000 years can dream up, right? So they were hoping, because they could see these various kingdoms, they were hoping that there would be an event that would take place where they would then have control. And of course, this baloney Galactic Federation and federations were telling them that they would help them. We would work together because they're now in charge because all the non-humans are not here. Well, they're not in charge of much of anything at this moment in time except for pushing up daisies, so God bless them. As far as the kingdoms, there were also security contracts at one point in time and corresponding AIs that go along with it. Limited access came to humans such as DARPA and other folks that you see, HARP, human appointed global computer systems with limited access to internets and human computers and all kinds of different things were granted to the deep state, but only in the sector that related to the humans. Now, for them, that was a lot of power, intelligence hubs in Maryland, Nova Scotia, of course, Langley, Virginia, military hubs in San Diego, various other hubs as it relates to reserve banks in Australia, South Africa, and other world banks and World Bank development banks in Singapore and other locations were also involved in this kingdom system that was devised by Marduk and a few others. They also tried to have liens against all of the source energy or source veins of life force that used to run through this planet. They also tried to claim control over all minerals and all kinds of things, hence some of the contracts that are trying to be put forth for a future date, any day after today or tomorrow, where others have been granted the rights to mine BLM land because the Rothschilds and this SSP thought they were going to be in charge once again. And now they realize that they don't have the authority to do that. Now, are they going to tell all of you mining groups with your multi-billion-dollar contracts that that's not going to work out? Probably not so much. But I would advise you that it's probably not a good idea. You see, because we took the kingdom artificial dark light and neutral photons and artificial or synthetic sophons from all of the kingdoms and replaced them with our photons and promptly attached our global intelligence agency key intelligence and military system to those photons. So anyone we do not want on our land, we can immediately eradicate. We have taken those properties and those quote-unquote liens, and they are now owned by Source. Now, there is some involvement of the Creator Golden Age AI and Creator Golden Age SI, or Source Intelligence System, that will help monitor all of these facilities. So thank you so much for playing Deep State. Game over. Now, they didn't have access, but they could see these things, and they were just waiting for the next alignment with Uranus or whatever these crazy Federation people were telling them to just get their turn. As ground command, you know, they could appoint a different one, maybe Vance this time, maybe that'll work. Yeah, they were all lying to each other. That's what they do. They just constantly lie to each other. Is that what they, you know, they just the lying family, I guess. We should just change all their last names to liar, you know. Forget Johnson and Rogers and Smiths and all the names we know that correspond with the secret space program operatives where they change their names. So that has been the last few days since we last spoke. There are a number of other things involved here as far as taking out the old kingdom systems and corresponding AIs, and we have worked many, many hours over the last few days to ensure that we were clean. Predominantly because, you know, every night when the sun would go down on the East Coast, there goes the frequencies again. You know, they just keep sending them out, hoping that they're going to be able to break into an AI. They just love to do things under the quote-unquote cover of darkness. Well, what's going to happen to all of you people when there is no more dark and there is no more cover? You know, I'm sure you're going to continue to try to reach out and touch someone, but I can assure you that there won't be a Federation that's going to answer the phone. Anyone that might be here from the Federation might still be walking around, might still be trying to help them in some way, shape, or form, but that will be short-lived should you continue to try to attack humanity and us. Okay, so that is that part of the report, but I have some other exciting news for all of you. And I know you've been hearing in our news, this is our news, regular news, not the Global Intelligence Agency report, about a trial that happened with a Dr. Young. So Dr. Young has been around for a long, long time. He's a known naturopathic doctor. He did attend naturopathic school when it wasn't cool to do so. They say that that school was not recognized, you know, and therefore he was practicing illegally. You know, they've tried to come at him many, many different times for his practices. He's written many books on the alkaline diet and its benefits, and we all know about the benefits of an alkaline diet. It can help prevent cancer and even help stop the spread if it's something that happens to you. So he's not wrong in what he says, you know, in his books and those types of things. But there's an interesting thing that happened last week where he was sentenced to another 5 years or so in prison, allegedly for stealing $950 from an elderly woman. They say that this woman had been ill for a long time and had thyroid issues, according to court documents, and liver issues. She was following his protocol and then stopped and then became quite ill again. The $950 was she spent buying various berries and other types of supplements and powders that would help her and help her cleanse her liver. We all know, we've watched many a YouTube video, probably all together and separately, about the benefits of, high antioxidant foods and foods that oxygenize the body and so on and so forth. So none of this is new to us. So Dr. Young has been under scrutiny for quite some time by many different folks that have claimed, he didn't heal them. But yet at the same time, this same doctor has appeared on the Oprah Winfrey Show talking about his protocols and other people that he has helped. He has also, is an acclaimed author. He was invited to the White House to talk about his protocols. So it's not like he's been an unrecognized person for doing good work. However, when the need arises, they tend to throw him in jail for ridiculous reasons. Now, if you know anything about U.S. law, law states that if it is a consumer issue of quote unquote theft of which he is accused, it is not a felony offense until you hit the amount of $50,000. Not to say that they couldn't be a civil case, and not to say there couldn't be a misdemeanor charge for theft of something of value of under $50,000. However, $950 is not $50,000, but in this particular case, they say it was elder abuse. Now, interestingly enough, this elderly woman was not permitted to appear in court, which is actually also part of another law. She only presented a statement through an attorney, which claims that she had been wronged and all of these kind of things. But could she actually confirm that statement? The answer to the question is no. That was also not permitted because they felt it would not be good for her health to do so, which is also kind of strange. So during the course of this interview and Sonny Galt's time at these various locations, including the courtroom and the sentencing hearing, she kind of heard a whole bunch of things that weren't quite right. So we decided to get Dr. Young's side of the story. And the interview is very, very interesting and very, very telling. And one thing the doctor said was that something really big is coming. He said it several times during the interview, and we don't know what that something big is yet, and we're really excited to hear what that would be. But the other thing that we discussed, both Sonny and I, a little bit behind the scenes, is some information we thought would keep for the Global Intelligence Agency report because it's a little bit controversial. So Dr. Young, at least was, I don't know if he still is, a member of the Mormon Church. His accuser is a woman by the name of Jane Clayton. Jane Clayton is the daughter of the elderly woman, Mrs. Clayton, who was allegedly hurt by Dr. Young. Jane Clayton, the accuser, also wrote the foreword in one of his books because she too is an author. And obviously, if she was inclined to write the foreword in one of his books, then you would surely think that, well, I guess at one point in time, Jane Clayton believed in him. Now, Jane has written books herself about a gluten-free diet and being a mom and being a Mormon and lots of other things. Jane Clayton was also a reporter with CBS News for quite a long time, had reported on very high-profile cases, did a lot of interviews with former presidents like Bush and others, who we know to just be lovely human beings. Her husband's name is Mark Johnson. He works with a company that actually does restructuring of other corporations. And his business partner actually wrote a book on how to not allow technologies out or how to let out substandard products in order to gain more income from people, meaning you put it out when it's really a bad product, and then you make improvements over time, and people will continue to buy said product with each individual improvement to the end of days. That's what he basically said, and that's his business theory. He's no longer with us. Apparently, he passed away a couple of years ago. Interesting last name, Johnson, isn't it? Just leave it at that. Now, the other thing that's interesting is, so we know Jane has a lot of political connections and is very high up in the Mormon Church, in the business circle of the Mormon Church. If you don't know, the Mormon Church has a very elitist kind of group within it who profit greatly from their relationships with one another. And are often catapulted into various positions, including NSA, CIA, government positions, and those types of things, not only in the United States, but in other countries in the world. So Jane is also a member of that part of the church, which obviously you can see through her career. She was definitely participating, in every way possible with various other elite members that are not of the church. Now, Jane's sister, his name is Hannah. Hannah Clayton Smith. She has married a man named John Smith. Also very interesting. So she marries a man named John Smith. Hannah. Hannah is a Mormon also, a member of the Mormon Church. She served her mission to Switzerland. Now, we know that Switzerland's a very interesting place. Not everybody that lives there, quite obviously. It is home to the Rothschilds in a large valley there. There was also the Octagon there, which was an intelligence hub at one point in time. Many, many things. Bern, Switzerland is also one of the deepest, darkest financial places on the planet. Switzerland's also home to the World Health Organization and the original Geneva Convention and various other United Nations facilities. But, why not take a mission and save the poor Swiss people? That's what Hannah did. Hannah then went on to work for the Supreme Court. Two justices, we know, Clarence Thomas and Samuel Alito. She also testified to the benefit of electing Neil Gorsuch to the Supreme Court. She served in many cases on the Supreme Court until recently. So quite a lot of involvement there with government and, wow, the Supreme Court too. So, you could probably phone a friend at any given point in time and throw anybody in jail, just allegedly, just saying, probably nothing to see here, folks, right? Yeah. A little bit of personal experience, and I just wanted to tell you about a couple of friends of mine. I have two friends, ones that I have more than two, but these particular two. One of them is a very good friend of mine and a former member of the Mormon Church. And she told me a lot about what happens with the elite group and how business works there. She said it's much like a multi-level marketing scheme. And she said that only certain members of the church could participate in the business investments of the Mormon Church. She told me that a business investment would have to be made should a member of the elite business community, which was not available to her, but she knew about it, and most members of the church did. She lived in Utah for quite a long time. And she told me that these business members were revered within the church and the temple. They were all participating if one of them wanted to start a business. It didn't matter what kind of business it was. All of the rest of them were to pitch in and support said business, and also support with the rest of the members of the church to buy said widget from said business. Don't buy any other widget, only buy our widgets from our businesses, because we're all Mormons and we need to stick together. That is the way she put it to me. Now, this comes from a person that used to be a regular member of the Mormon church, but had run around in circles in Utah, so probably had a little more access to see a lot more than Mormons in other locations. So this is her personal experience I'm relaying to you. I'm not saying all members of the Mormon church are like bad or anything, but she was never one of those members. She just had some observations. Of course, there are only certain areas of the temple you can go into if you are not one of these elite members. Of course, there is a council of elders. Most of the time, if there's a dispute within the business community or members of the church, then those disputes are solved by the Council of Elders or some folks that work with the Council of Elders, depending on the case. Normally, these things are not taken to court. If it is a Mormon against a Mormon or a dispute between the two. So I find it very interesting that Dr. Young's case ended up going to court more than once. And it was also brought against him by a member of elite status, business status, I should say, within the Mormon church. Also interesting that her sister worked with the Supreme Court. So I wonder how legit this case is. I'll just give you my personal opinion. I'm allowed to have a personal opinion. There's a little bit more we've kind of dug into over the course of the last 24 hours since the interview took place. And it's pretty shady in there, let's just say. Now, other interesting information that came to light during the interview was, that Dr. Young is also very Christian, or at least as a very godly man. I know that he and Sonny enjoyed a lot of talks, probably off the record, about religion and that type of thing. So it appears that whether Dr. Young is still a member of the church or not, I don't know. We did not ask him that question, but he's still a very godly man in either case. I do know that there was some information in the court records that Ms. Clayton's or Mrs. Clayton's mother and he used to pray together as to, of course, for her speedy recovery and those types of things, because they were of the same faith. So I can assume that Dr. Young is also a part of the church. I just find it really interesting that this actually went public like this, because normally these disputes do not. So I wonder where they're getting at here and what they're wanting from Dr. Young. We do know that one of his properties was seized. He's been sued for millions of dollars many times before by other people. And I'm just wondering what exactly is going on. Now, friend number 2, and I'll be quick about this because I know this report's gone on for a while. Friend number 2 has a technology. And friend number 2 was in talks with a business elite member of the Mormon church, and this has gone on in the last 5 years. Said technology is very unique. You could say that the technology involves a non-explosive battery that could run electric cars, let's just say, or trucks, or heavy vehicles, or all kinds of different things. Well, this member of the church, which they had been involved and had a business relationship for about 3 or 4 years, passed away. He was in an accident, let's just say a vehicle accident. And when he was in this accident, then other members of the church came forward, because remember, if you are a member of the business elite, everybody is investing in your business. Now, there wasn't a whole lot of financial money that exchanged hands, but this member of the church prior to his death said that he has a lot of money behind him, a tremendous amount of money behind him. You know, he is going to invest billions and billions of dollars. He also sold this technology to other members of the business elite within the Mormon church. Therefore, they had and probably continued to make investments in this church member. However, none of those investments trickled down to the parties with the technology. So after his death, and that happened, a few years ago now, the Mormon business community has continuously badgered those with the technology, and anyone that took a part in any of the board meetings, any of the businesses. They have threatened their families. They have tried to get them to rack up enormous amounts of legal fees until they could wear them down, until they just turned over the technology to the members of the business community, which has not happened at this moment in time. But I can tell you, as far as the legal activities of the business elite of the Mormon church, if you are not a Mormon and you go against whatever it is they want, it could be legal, it could be not legal. It doesn't matter if it's legal. They will wear you down with their billions of dollars in court over and over and over again until they get what they want. If they had a reason to, they would have thrown these people in jail too. And I know that for a fact because I've been in a lot of talks with my friend, and I was basically telling my friend that, look, this isn't even legal. This isn't legal. They can't ask you for this. File for this. Tell your attorney you want to do that. Because, sometimes attorneys, when you aren't paying billions of dollars like the Mormon church does, it's not very good for your career to go against the Mormon church either. You never know when you're going to lose your bar license or anything else to practice because, they're pretty brutal. But I've watched this stuff happen firsthand. Just like I told you that I watched firsthand real estate agents and developers and all kinds of people get screwed out of money by Donald Trump long before his presidency. And now he's doing it to all of you patriots. That's a story for another day. But in this particular case, this is very interesting. We are going to continue to dig and do some investigative reporting here. We can't wait to see what Dr. Young and his supporters come up with as far as the something big he keeps referring to. And I'm sure, this guy knows a lot of secrets, that's for sure. Let's just leave it at that. Anyway, so it's going to be a great interview. It is going to be released right after this report airs for our subscribers. So that report will be available for you to watch before anyone else. Shortly thereafter, within the next few days, we plan on releasing that report and the interview everywhere. I mean, just everywhere. We are going to have it on all our social media. We are going to have the report available for free after that so that anyone can watch it. And we want to make sure that this information gets out there. But we did want to give you a little bit of background information here that won't come along with that interview because it's a little bit of my opinion, and it's also a little bit of back intelligence that, we've come to find over the last few days, and I didn't want Sunny to put herself at risk by giving out the information. So, interesting story, and I hope you do watch the interview. It's a great interview. It's about, I think, 30 minutes or so long, maybe a little less. And yeah, so when it does come out on our social media, I'm going to ask that you help us share it everywhere with your friends and your family and support our medical freedom to choose how we choose to treat ourselves, regardless of how old you are or how young you are. We should have the right to choose. It's our body and what we choose to do with it, whether or not it is something our children or others around us believe or don't believe. And if that works, then it's great. If it doesn't work, well, then it didn't work. But the point is that you should have the right to choose your body, your choice. On that note, I hope you enjoy the interview and help us to share it everywhere. It's really important information to get out there. We have other interviews coming up like this one for obvious reasons here. Our care division also supports medical freedom to choose, and the right and the financial wherewithal to make those decisions, not based on your income, but based on what you feel is right for you. On that note, this has been the GIA report for June 2nd, 2025, and I will see all of you on Wednesday. Hopefully that will be the end of the transition, and we'll have a lot more to talk about. So have a great beginning of your week, and I'll see you Wednesday.